If you've got the teeth, I's got the dakka. Ah ha 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 ha.
Greetings all! Welcome to another episode of The Chop Shop, the channel of builds, kit bashes, restorations, and conversions. Today we're looking at 3 simple conversions you can make to old green rod Necron models so they better fit with the army's modern design. A short word, nay, plea, before we begin. The following modifications are intended for hobbyists whose armies include mixtures of old and new Necron models and who want a consistent visual appearance across their miniatures. If you have a full 3rd edition green rod army, for the love of living metal and my aching antiquarian heart, please consider not converting it and just keeping it original and enjoying it as is. Thank you. I personally love wheeling and dealing in miniature collections. I get a lot of pleasure out of finding deals, combing through and sorting random lots, and generally just handling models, particularly from the earlier editions of Warhammer 40k that I grew up on. As fine as all the new sculpts and miniatures are, the period from 2nd to 4th edition is where it's at for me. And as a Necron player and painter, that means dealing with the wonderful world of green rod Gauss weapons. I remember when they were first introduced in the late 90s, replacing the original 2nd edition models on the walls of the Games Workshop at Square One Shopping Mall in Toronto. I have a distinct memory of the minor painting controversy surrounding the release of the Nightbringer model. At the time, non-metallic metal, or NMM, was not a popular painting technique, and the Nightbringer was the first time, if memory serves, that Games Workshop had a full NMM model as its box art. I recall a bunch of local painters and staff talking over the box about how NMM wasn't great because it only looked good from a single perspective. Oh, how the times have changed. But I digress. I quite like the striking design aesthetic of the rods. Outside of flight stands and vehicle canopies, these rods and accents were the only time GW consistently incorporated transparent parts in an army's aesthetic. While they would slowly be phased out starting in 2011 with 5th edition, it wouldn't be until 2020 and the launch of 9th that the rank-and-file warriors would lose the rods. Even so, the current Necron destroyers, which are now about 23 years old at the time of recording, are still sporting this bit of flash. As such, whether you're buying models brand new or second-hand, there's a good chance you'll have at least a few green rods in your army. There are 3 conversions we'll be looking at today, 2 for the small green rods and 1 for the large green rod that only appears on the Monolith. To convert destroyers, what we want are Necron Immortal Gauss blasters. We'll need 2 blasters for every destroyer, so if you built a beefy squad of 10 Immortals with Tesla carabines, you'll have enough blasters for 5 destroyers. What we're looking for are the blaster's 2 Gauss rods. These rods, including the little nub at the end, are the exact same length as the old green rods, so make for perfect replacements. The only tricky part is that the sides need to be sanded flat so as to fit in the Gauss cannon's barrel. Make sure that the sides are sanded straight, however, or the indented details are going to be skewed. While less commonly found in second-hand collections, it's possible you might come across the old heavy destroyers, which were just standard destroyers with metal upgrades. The same conversion applies, though you'll only need a single blaster instead of 2. Unfortunately for me, the previous owner of my heavies took out the weapon's central support to install an LED light. One relatively common conversion in ye olden days was to install small lights at the rears of the rods to make them glow. Normally, I would take the time to fix models like this properly, but even for someone who adores old sculpts, the Heavy Destroyer upgrade is fugly as sin, and the only reason why I'm going to paint these models is because I happen to have them, and they're saving me a bunch of money from getting new ones. Outside of destroyers, the most common green rod Necron you're likely to come across are warriors. Fortunately, they have the simplest conversion, a full Gauss flare from the new models. As the new warriors are dual build kits containing both a full 10 Gauss flares and reapers each, loose flares are easy enough to find. If you're buying a Necron collection secondhand and you notice there's a mix of old and new warriors, the seller might have extra flares they'll be willing to throw in. Failing that, you can almost certainly find some reasonably priced on various Facebook miniature buy and sell groups. Alternatively, you could purchase additional warriors, such as through the current combat patrol, build them with Gauss Reapers, and use the leftover flares. The last conversion we're looking at is the Monolith, which uses both small and large green rods. Having scrounged around my collection of Necron Bitz, there was no single part that I found to be a suitable replacement for the large rod. However, I did some playing around and discovered that the rear portion of the Enmitic Exterminator from the current Heavy Destroyer model could be made to work, with each exterminator supplying for a single rod. The replacement does require a bit of careful work. First, make sure that 2 pieces each retain the little end finger clasp things at one end. If you accidentally chop them off, the piece will be too short and you'll get an ugly gap. Second, you want to truncate the other ends somewhat and make sure that the face cuts are perpendicular so that they're flush when you glue them. Third, ensure that the long edges of the bandolier you're creating are cut smooth. When you glue the 4 pieces together, it should be straight and in alignment. Lastly, go slow and check the fit at each step. Wait for the glue to set completely before inserting the final part into the monolith panel. You may need to sand down the edges for a good fit, and you want a fully cured piece when you do that. The only proper issue with this conversion is that monoliths need 6 rod replacements, which means we need 6 exterminators. Fortunately, not only are heavy destroyers more often than not built with Gauss destructors, meaning loose exterminator bits are relatively common, but you're also unlikely to convert more than one old monolith. The small rod replacement is the same for the destroyers, with one addition. Blaster rods are not quite long enough to fill the space, producing a small gap on the end where there's no nub. To rectify this, we're going to build our own nub with a small piece of paperclip. The paperclip diameter isn't quite the same as the plastic nub, but unless your OCD is firing on all cylinders, it won't be noticeable. We only need the suggestion of top-bottom symmetry. And that's it. 3 simple conversions for helping old Necron models fit in with your new ones. As you can see, the normal destroyers are pretty skookum. Once you've replaced a few rods, the process becomes second nature, and converting future destroyers is fairly straightforward. The heavy destroyer, on the other hand, is perfectly serviceable for the tabletop. The warrior conversion is perhaps the best. So long as the models themselves were built well and not in awkward poses, no one will notice the difference between old and new models once they're on the table. The core model design principles haven't changed, and unlike Firstborn and Primaris Space Marines, the scale difference is relatively minor. I think the monolith conversion turned out well enough. I've only had time to finish one of the Gauss flux arcs, which is pretty spicy. It does show, however, what happens when you don't sand the blaster rod edges properly. The rods sit twisted. Two final notes, the first regarding stripping models. I use a heated ultrasonic cleaner because I plan on doing quite a bit of work with old collections, and the machine speeds up the process significantly. I've dialed my settings to 30 minutes at 45 degrees Celsius using a 2-to-1 mixture of water to LA's Totally Awesome, which is available in Canada from Dollar Tree. You do not need a heated ultrasonic cleaner to strip models. You do not need to use LA's Totally Awesome. If you're only looking to strip a few models, you can let them soak for a day or two in either Simple Green or Super Clean, then clean them with a firm toothbrush. You might have to repeat the process a few times depending on what paints were used, and you'll need to put in some elbow grease to scrub it off, but it'll work fine. That being said, if you're looking to strip a full army that you purchased secondhand, I strongly recommend taking some of the money you save from buying new and investing it in at least a small, sturdy ultrasonic cleaner. It will make the process of stripping a lot easier. Finally, do not throw away the leftover conversion bits. The blaster blades and exterminator bodies have great conversion potential. I have some future projects and videos planned on how to make use of these and other bits for conversions, kit bashes, and terrain pieces. If that's the kind of thing that interests you, keep an eye out on this channel and my Facebook and Instagram pages for updates and sneak peeks. Speaking of social media plugs and shameless self-advertisement, if you enjoyed this video, and I hope you did, why not give it a like? If you're wanting to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. Lastly, if you have any questions about the video or have ideas of your own that you'd like to share, please comment below. That's it for today. See you next time.